Good morning, everybody, and welcome to week 3. If you are between any lineup decisions, taking you as close to kickoff as I possibly can, probably a hard stop of around 12:30 East, as I have to make sure that my own situation is good to go. I have to make sure that my final lineup decisions are sorted out. But if there is anything that you are still deciding between ahead of the Sunday slate, maybe you popped in for yesterday's stream and you're still between a couple of different options and you want just like some final thoughts before kickoff, that is what this is for. And hopefully we get some dubs today. Hopefully everybody has a good day. It's always a good day when it's a football Sunday, but it's always made better when your fantasy teams win. It's always made better when your NFL team wins, and then of course when your fantasy team wins. So hopefully it's a good morning or a good day in general for everybody. Let's get these wins. Always got to give a special shout out to my members who help keep the lights on around here. E111, Greg, what's going on, guys? Good to see both of y'all and everybody else as well. Hopefully we get some wins. So, Greg, let me know what you're sorting through. As always, if you are new or if you've been around the block, just as a reminder, as members ask questions, that is a perk of being a member of the channel, is you will get your questions answered in priority order or your comments responded to in priority order. That is again, a perk of being a member of the channel. You only have to be a member at the lowest level membership to get access to the priority answers. There are details in the first link in the description of this stream and all of the videos and streams on the channel. If you are feeling generous or so inclined to send a super, you don't have to, but that would also be a line jumper, and then I will get to everybody else. So, Greg, when I see what questions you have, I will make sure to prioritize that. But let me start off the top just to start knocking off some questions because I see them trickling in. I know folks are going to have some, you have some things to sort through. Start at quarterback between Darnold, Deshaun Watson, and Caleb Williams. Darnold has Houston at home. Watson is also at home against the Giants, and then Caleb Williams is on the road against the Colts. Justin Jefferson is playing, right, without any expected limitations. I would probably go Darnold. Watson still has a long way to go to prove that he is, can be a regularly relied upon option at quarterback. And Caleb just doesn't look good right now. The Bears in general on offense don't look very good. I'll take Darnold. He has the best receiver in the game to throw the football to in Justin Jefferson. And that's good enough for me. Between these three options, I'll take Darnold. He's at home. You figure the Texans are a threat on offense to score points. Therefore, the Vikings are going to have to keep pace. I'll take Darnold. I don't trust Watson, and I don't trust Caleb Williams right now. And then I see Greg's question, so let me get down to Greg. Again, as a member, a perk of the channel, a perk of being a member is you will get your questions answered in priority order. You have Mixon and Debo out. You're between Pittman, Akers, Aaron Jones, Thielen, and Jawan Jennings. What's up, Crumply Heads? Best of luck starting both Cowboys running backs today, but I think that's the move you got to go with. I would go back to the well, Greg, with Pittman one more time because for the simple fact, you drafted him high. We have high expectations. You have high expectations for Pittman because we drafted him in the 3rd or 4th round. I think we go back to the well with Pittman at home. I think this is a decent get-right spot for him. So he would be my wide receiver, definitively over Thielen and Jennings. And then I would probably go those two running backs. I would probably just go Akers and Aaron Jones. Thielen, his floor could be boosted today, probably should be boosted today, but we need to see how that plays out first. Jennings, prime opportunity, but you know, are they just going to be running the ball in the second half because they have a big lead? Jennings is interesting. I'm just not sure how many opportunities he's going to get. So I'll take the running backs. I'll take Akers and Aaron Jones. Hope Jones can come through with a touchdown at home. Akers comes through with an with an expanded opportunity with no Mixon and no Dameon Pierce either. And then I'll take Pittman because let's go back to the well with Michael Pittman for one more week. You drafted him high. We have high expectations. Let's not panic too much after just 2 weeks. Let's go back to the well with him before we truly stop trusting him. If you want to go Jennings, that's fine. That's your call. But I would go back to the well with Pittman for one more week. Yeah, the 49ers, everyone's out for the 49ers except for Brandon Ayuk, essentially. So, yes, Jennings will have an expanded role, an expanded opportunity. But I still think Pittman is his wide receiver one, the Colts wide receiver one. I think we need to go back to him for one more week. I would not totally. If Pittman duds again this week, then we can have a serious conversation about whether Pittman belongs in your starting lineup for week 4. But I think for one more week at home, we fire him up. So best of luck. I think that's it for members' questions for now. So let me go back up to the top. And good morning again to everybody. Let's get some dubs. What do you say? London or JMO in full PPR? London's at home. JMO's on the road. Jameson Williams looks great through 2 weeks, man. He really does. But I think you have to go back to the well with Drake London for one more week. I know the Chiefs, they played a good game against Jamar Chase last week, but they're on the road this time. The Falcons could be riding a little bit of momentum after beating the Eagles on Monday night on the road. Now they have to get up for a primetime Sunday night football game in their house against the defending champs. I think they'll show up for this game. I would go back to the well with London. JMO is on fire for sure. He looks like he's going to be a regular contributor all season long, and that's great. I'm just happy for Jameson Williams because he did have a tumultuous start to his career, but it's looking like he is. I mean, all I'll say is he's off to a great start. He's off to a great start in his 3rd season, and we love to see it. But we drafted Drake London in the 2nd round. He came to life last week. I think you have to go with, I'm a big proponent, maybe to a fault. You're not going to hear this from every I'm not an analyst. Every pundit, every fantasy football talking head. You're not going to hear this from everybody, but I'm a big proponent of, for the first month of the season, committing to the dudes that you drafted high, as long as they're healthy. London, you just drafted higher than Jameson Williams, and while they're both, JMO is off to the better start, but London had a great game last week, or a good game last week. I'll go back to the well with him at home. But I love what I've seen from Jameson Williams so far. E111, what's going on? Lockett, Cooks, Dortch, Naylor. And is that Ronnie Rivers? I'm not stashing Ronnie Rivers. If Kyron goes down, obviously, knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen. But if anything happens to Kyron, that Rams offense in general will just be officially one to avoid entirely. It's so decimated. The offensive line is in shambles right now. I don't think Rivers is on your radar just because you have Kyron Williams. I guess the start here is Cooks. He's generally been better at home. Lockett has a good matchup as well. The difference between Lockett and Cooks is I know Cooks will be a starter for his offense, whereas Are we seeing a changing of the guard in Seattle? Did Jackson Smith-Njigba, and I don't want to overreact over just one game, but Smith-Njigba was their first round pick last year, and he had his best game of his short career thus far last week. Are we seeing a transition of Seattle going more to Jackson Smith-Njigba and maybe a little less to Tyler Lockett? I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but the fact that it is a question is enough for me to say I'll go Brandon Cooks in a game where they're probably going to have to be aggressive. Dallas against the Baltimore Ravens. So one to start, one to roster. But I mean, it's both of those first two wide receivers. It's Cooks and Lockett are the guys to roster of those options. Because while I do have question marks about or I have tentative questions about Lockett just after 1 week, I'm not giving up on him. I'm not giving up on him. So I'll say start Cooks, stash Lockett. So you got it. Hopefully that helps. And best of luck today. There should be points scored in that game, in that Ravens Cowboys game. The other thing with the Seattle receivers is how much work are they going to need to do today? It's not out of the realm of like, I know Miami has elite weapons on offense, but they have a glaring hole right now at quarterback. It's possible Seattle doesn't have to do that much on offense. So if they're running the ball in the second half, that just takes opportunities away from the receivers. Zamir White or Jerome Ford in the flex. I will go Zamir White here. This is supposed to be the game for Zamir White. If Zamir White doesn't deliver in this game, he may actually be approaching drop territory. At home against the Carolina Panthers, one of the worst run defenses in the NFL right now. The Giants are a good matchup as well for Ford, but the question is how much does Donta Foreman mix in? You could say the same thing for Zamir White as it pertains to Alexander Mattison, but I know that Zamir White is the thumper. He's the runner, and the Raiders should have a lead in this game against the god-awful Carolina Panthers. They are giving up almost 200 rushing yards per game through 2 weeks, the Carolina is. It's now or I'll say it. It is now or never for Zamir White. If Zamir White doesn't clear 60 yards receiving and honestly get a score, if we don't get 12 half PPR fantasy points from Zamir White today, it's over. I'll say it right now. If we don't get that from him today, it's over. It's put up or shut up time for Zamir White. Antonio Pierce earlier in the week said they want to get him 20 carries a game or 20 touches a game. This is that opportunity. This is that time. I'm going with Zamir White. I like Jerome Ford as well in a matchup against the Giants, but I do think Donta Foreman mixes in more than we would like to see for Jerome Ford. Yes, Alexander Madison's presence is there in the Raiders' backfield as well, but Zamir White should be the one getting the carries. The Raiders are 5-point favorites today. That's the last I saw. I don't know if that line has changed anymore. Feel free to check me if anybody's paying attention to the spreads. But the Raiders are favored. Zamir should be getting the ball in the second half of that game. Give me Zamir White. If he does not deliver today, it's over. I will declare it now. But that being said, I want to go to him because this is the matchup. Come on, Zamir White. This is the time. Jerome Ford, Jalen Naylor, or Jawan Jennings in full PPR. So this is where I would go Jerome Ford. Naylor had a touchdown last week, and he's a speedster. This is a decent matchup for him today. But Ford will have a regular role. This is a beatable matchup against the New York Giants. They are at home. Naylor's at home as well against the Texans, but Ford is more of a regular player for the Browns offense than Naylor is for the Vikings, at least going into the season anyway. Same with Jennings. Both intriguing wide receivers in intriguing spots. He is more intriguing with George Kittle out. Jennings is, but this is a good spot for Jerome Ford. They're favored in this game. The Browns are. They should be run. I don't, whether the carries in the second half go to Foreman or Ford remains to be seen. And while I do have a little bit of concern about Foreman's presence, he didn't look good last week. That could change. Remember, he suffered a neck injury in training camp, so he's moving away from that. So maybe as he gets healthier, he continues to get better. But until we see that happen in this matchup, I'll take Ford over the ancillary wide receivers. I'll take Jerome Ford. Colby Parkinson or Jake Ferguson? Ferguson. And this is pretty definitive for me. If he's healthy, you drafted him to be a set and forget tight end one. And he is. He's healthy. He's playing this week. I don't think he's even on the injury report. Ferguson. Guy who probably should be the Cowboys' number 2 target in the pecking order. I don't even see that he has an injury designation. Ferguson over Ford, or Ferguson over Parkinson definitively. Where am I at? Start 2 in standard. DJ Moore, Jamison Williams, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Zay Flowers. I think you have to go Flowers, right? He's coming off a good game last week. Got some work downfield last week. He's getting the targets. He's the first read most of the time for the Baltimore Ravens. I would go Flowers. And then it's probably between Jamison Williams and DJ Moore. I'm inclined to say DJ Moore, just even though it hasn't been great for the Bears so far. But this is a beatable matchup. I hate that I'm not Jamison Williams just yet, but I mean, DJ Moore is on, he's on the field all the time. I think, is Keenan Allen still out? I believe Keenan Allen was once again ruled out. So DJ Moore is going to command all of the targets. He's out. I mean, week 1, 5 catches for 36 yards. Not great. Week 2, a little bit better. 6 catches for 53 yards. I know those numbers aren't spectacular, but he has 18 targets through 2 weeks. So he's averaging 9 targets a game. They're going to have to continue to throw on the road. It has not been super impressive from Caleb Williams yet, but this is a more beatable matchup than the first 2 matchups they've had this season. I think you have to go back to the well with DJ Moore for one more week. I love Jamison Williams and what he's doing. And it's a good matchup. But I think you just have more. Right now, those other options are a little bit more proven, and guys that I want to, and they're much more and DJ Moore and Zay Flowers are their team's first read in the passing game. J-Mo's not there yet. It's still Amon-Ra for Detroit. So I'll say Moore and I'll say Flower. And Smith-Njigba, great game last week. Let's see him do it two weeks in a row before we consider starting him over guys like DJ Moore and Zay Flowers. Strange, Ertz, Parkinson, or Moreau. So, yeah, the Saints tight ends like Jawan Johnson and Foster Moreau have a little bit more appeal because I don't think Taysom Hill is going to play today. I don't think he was officially ruled out yet, but he was listed as doubtful as of yesterday. So he's probably not playing today. I'm saying Ertz. Ertz was the guy. If anybody caught my stream yesterday, Ertz is the low-end tight end stream that I am rocking with this week over guys like Strange, the tight end for Jacksonville, over guys like Colby Parkinson, over Pat Fryermuth, over Dalton Schultz, over Cole Kmet, the Saints tight ends. I'm going with Ertz. It's not a great matchup, and I don't know if he's going to deliver, but Washington's going to have to throw the ball a little bit more on Monday night against the Bengals. They are not going to be able to just run. Cincinnati is at full strength on offense now with T. Higgins playing. Washington's going to have to throw. Ertz had 4 catches for 60 yards last week. Washington's ancillary options at wide receiver are unproven. So I'm rocking with Ertz. And Jaden Daniels is playing decently. He's playing pretty good. So I'll take Ertz over any other ancillary tight end stream this week. With Strange, the Jags look awful. With Parkinson, the Rams are in shambles on offense. And then Foster Moreau, he did catch a touchdown week 1. He had a touchdown called back due to penalty week 2. It's a good matchup, but that touchdown could swing to Juwan Johnson anytime. Whereas I know Ertz is the guy for Washington at tight end. It's not the rookie, not yet. So I'll go Ertz. Ertz is my pick for the tight end stream of the week over anybody like Parkinson or Strange or Dalton Schultz or Fryermuth or anybody like that. That same goes for anybody. PPR, DK or JMO? Metcalf. Let's go Metcalf. He had a big play for a touchdown in a bad matchup last week. Now he's back at home. Nothing super scary about this matchup. I hate that I'm not suggesting Jameson Williams so far. There's a lot of JMO questions in this chat, and make no mistake, I love JMO and what he's done so far, and it's a good matchup, but there's just, you guys have other options that I like a little bit better. I'll say Metcalf. Metcalf over Jameson Williams at home. And then Swift or Dobbins, I mean, I just don't trust DeAndre Swift, man. I think it's not a great, I will say this, though. It's not a great matchup for Dobbins on the road against Pittsburgh with a banged up Justin Herbert. Swift, on the other hand, does have a good matchup. The Colts are giving up a lot of rushing production so far this year. They gave up 150 yards to Josh Jacobs last week. And then they gave up like 150 yards to Joe Mixon week 1. DeAndre Swift is not as good as those two players, but this matchup is spectacular. Of course, the Bears' offensive line is not good. I will leave you with this. As far as Dobbins versus Swift, Dobbins is in the much worse matchup with a hobbled quarterback, but he looks much better than DeAndre Swift. Swift has the better matchup by far, but he's in the worst. He's in a not great situation either. The rookie quarterback's not playing well, and the offensive line looks awful. Dobbins, bad matchup. Justin Herbert hobbled. Swift, good matchup, but struggling rookie quarterback play and bad offensive line. I'll say Dobbins just because he's playing better, but I don't have a ton of confidence in that. I'll be completely honest. I'll say Dobbins over Swift, but I do not have a ton of confidence in that. It's good player playing well in a bad matchup versus average player in a great matchup with a bad offensive line. I'll take Dobbins, but I don't have a ton of confidence in it. So again, tight end for this week, Gesicki, Strange, or Colby Parkinson. Is Zach Ertz on the wire? That's who I would prefer. Mike Gesicki has been a solid player, but the Bengals have a lot of options at tight end. It's dealer's choice any given week. I'll just say, if you're between guys like Mike Gesicki and Brenton Strange and Colby Parkinson, is Zach Ertz available? If Ertz is available, then I would say Ertz. If he's not available, then I guess I would go Gesicki. At least he's catching passes from Joe Burrow. Strange, I don't trust. The Jacksonville offense looks putrid right now, and Colby Parkins, like the Rams, I just don't trust the Rams offense against the 49ers in its current state. It's not good. So, Ertz if he's available, Gesicki if he's not. And then Dobbins or Moss. This is where I'm going Moss. Again, Dobbins is off to a great start, but this is an awful spot today. On the road against Pittsburgh, and Justin Herbert is a game-time decision with this high ankle sprain that he's dealing with. We might see Dobbins kind of come back to earth a little bit today. I will say Moss at home in a spectacular matchup against Washington, and Moss is dominating the work in the backfield. Moss over Dobbins. Let's see. I got my member questions. Thank you guys again. Appreciate the support. Start Dobbins or Diggs? I guess Diggs. I don't have a ton of confidence in that. It's just Dobbins. Dobbins is off to an awesome start, and we're super happy for J.K. Dobbins because of all that he has gone through the first stretch of his career with all of the injuries he's picked up. But this is not a good spot on the road against the Steelers, and Justin Herbert is banged up. I don't know how much I trust Stephon Diggs either, but at least Stroud is healthy. It's a prolific passing offense. I'll say Diggs. Again, I don't have a ton. I admittedly don't have a ton of confidence in that one. I would want to start Dobbins if it were any other situation, or even if Herbert was 100%, even if Herbert was healthy, I would say Dobbins even in a bad matchup, but there's too much working against Dobbins right now for me to have a ton of confidence in him. I'll say Diggs. I'm very lukewarm on that suggestion, I'll be completely honest, but Dobbins is in a really bad spot. At least Diggs is catching passes from CJ Stroud. You can have a little bit of confidence in that. Justin Herbert is active. We are starting to get injury confirmations rolling in now that we're at the 11:30 East hour or bottom of the hour. So injury reports, inactives are going to start rolling in here shortly. Justin Herbert being active is good news for the Chargers offense. So slight boost for a guy like J.K. Dobbins. But again, how effective will Herbert be? That remains to be seen. Thoughts on T. Higgins? I would play T. Higgins tonight or tomorrow night over a guy like Brian Thomas, who I'm very bullish on. I love Brian Thomas and what we've seen from him so far. He is the bright spot in what is otherwise a very lackluster Jaguars offense. But with Higgins coming back, yes, he's a little volatile. It's his first game back after missing a lot of time. But this is such a good matchup against Washington, who hasn't been able to stop anybody through the air so far. I am willing to roll the dice on T. Higgins, even though we have not seen him yet this year. The matchup is that good. And you do have until tomorrow night to grapple with this, obviously, because both guys play on Monday night. We got a Monday night doubleheader tomorrow night. So you do have a little bit of extra time to go back and forth on this if you would like. Ultimately, I would suggest T. Higgins. We haven't seen him yet, but this matchup is too good. So I'll roll the dice on the more accomplished player, even though we haven't seen him so far this year. I'll take a shot on T. Higgins. At home against Washington, I'll take a shot. Brian Thomas is on the road against Buffalo, which looks like a really bad matchup. and Buffalo's defense looks strong, and Jacksonville's offense does not, I'll take Higgins. I'll take Higgins. What's up, Fortune? Good to see you, sir. Waddle, Higgins, McLaurin in the flex. Not Waddle. I am out. So if anybody, if you maybe I went if anybody didn't catch the stream yesterday, I am hard out on Jalen Waddle until further notice. We just need to see any signs of life from him catching passes from Skylar Thompson. In the limited sample size we have with Skylar Thompson in at quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, Jalen Waddle's numbers go off a cliff. If you have Tyreek Hill, you have no choice. You have to play Tyreek Hill, but you don't have to play Jalen Waddle, and I highly suggest that you do not. Could he come through? Of course. He's a great individual talent, but this is a brutal situation in a less than ideal matchup. I am not playing Jalen Waddle right now if I have any warm bodies as an alternative option. So he's a distant third for me in this group, and he's going to be a distant option for me in any scenario, unless you have unless your question is Jalen Waddle or Ray McLeod or one of the Packers wide receivers without Jordan Love, then I guess sure, fine, fire up Waddle. But I am out on Waddle until we see any signs of life with Skylar Thompson. So it's between Higgins and McLaurin. McLaurin is off to a really bad start. They have suggested, the Commanders, that they want to get him going. They want to get him more involved. This would be a spot to do that with the with expected game script dictating that Washington is probably going to have to throw against a good Cincinnati offense that is at full strength. I'm not sure how confident I am in this suggestion, Fortune, but I will tentatively say McLaurin. I like T. Higgins this week, even though we have not seen him play. This is such a good matchup at home that he is on the wide receiver 3 upside, with upside radar. T. Higgins is. But I'll go back to the well with McLaurin for one more week because at least I know he's healthy, and I know that Washington is going to have to throw more than they typically would like to. And at least he should command a 25 to 30% target share as the first read. Tentatively, McLaurin, hopefully this is the week that he breaks out a little bit. I like Higgins full disclosure, I like Higgins as an option. But I'll give my suggestion to McLaurin for one more week. He's the one who's not coming off of an extended absence due to an injury like Higgins is. And while Higgins has the much better matchup, McLaurin is on the other side in this matchup, and Washington is going to have to throw. We would expect that the Cincinnati Bengals, at full strength on offense, will force the Washington Commanders to have to play aggressive on offense. They're not just going to be able to run. Terry, I'll be honest, only lukewarm confidence in that, but game script would suggest that this is a good opportunity for Terry McLaurin. But best of luck. Good to see you, Fortune. As always, for anybody who has been here before or is coming in for the first time, I do get to my members first. That is a perk of being a member of the channel. And then I will get to everybody else. So appreciate everybody's patience. Let's see. I suggested T. Higgins. I did suggest T. Higgins over Brian Thomas. I like Brian Thomas, but this is a bad matchup for him. Jacksonville doesn't look good. T. Higgins is in a great matchup. I'll roll the dice on Higgins. Flex Metcalf or Charbonnet? Charbonnet. I mean, he's going to get all the work. He's in the bell cow role with no Kenneth Walker. Um, this is a good matchup at home, and I think Seattle's going to handle their business against a Skylar Thompson-led Miami Dolphins. I think Skylar Thompson is going to struggle today. I do. I think that's going to create some potentially short fields for Seattle's offense, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're playing with a decent lead in the second half and they're running the ball. That's Charbonnet. Metcalf, it sucks to what's going on, Jay? Good to see you. It sucks to have to bench DK freaking Metcalf, but Charbonnet is an elite play this week. Metcalf is a good play any given week. Charbonnet is an elite play this week. I think you have to go with Charbonnet with no Kenneth Walker. You have to go Charbonnet with no Kenneth Walker. And Jay, again, as always, I get to my members first. That is a perk of being a member of the channel. But I see my spot in line. I see everybody else's questions. I will get to you. Appreciate everybody's patience. And thanks for coming in and hanging out today. Let's get some week 3 dubs. Pick 2 in full PPR, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Malik Neighbors. I hate that I have to suggest that you bench Derrick Henry, but that's where I would go. The Packers are on the road against Tennessee, but after receiving 32 carries last week, Malik Willis is back starting for Green Bay today. Jordan Love is going to miss another week. So they're going to run. It's not as good of a matchup as last week, but Jacobs is going to get all the work that he can handle. So I think you have to play Jacobs. And then I would, in full PPR, even in a bad matchup, Neighbors looks excellent. I would play Neighbors. I can't believe I'm suggesting sit Derrick Henry, but in full PPR, in a game where we can probably expect a decent amount of points to be scored, I wouldn't be surprised if Justice Hill gets in there a little bit more frequently for Baltimore, fresh off of that contract extension that he got earlier this week. Could Henry fall into the end zone today? Yeah, absolutely. He's Derrick freaking Henry. But in full PPR, I like the rookie wide receiver in a game where the Giants are going to be throwing the ball. It's going to be gross because Daniel Jones is awful, but he's good enough to throw the ball directly at his wide receiver 1, and Malik Neighbors is good enough to make big things happen even in bad matchups. He looks like the truth already through 2 games in his career. Neighbors looks like the truth. Jacobs and Neighbors, Jay. I don't love sitting Henry, but in full PPR, I just like those other guys a little bit more. Neighbors looks awesome. Pat yourself on the back if you have Malik Neighbors. It's going to be a fun season with him. Whether they go to Drew Lock or stick with Daniel Jones, like Neighbors looks like he might be just quarterback proof. And maybe even situation proof. Today will be a good test for him. The Browns have a really good defense and they're on the road. Today will be a good test for him. If Neighbors can come through today, he's an auto start no matter what. And no, I would not start Henry over Jonathan Taylor. No. Nah. Jacobs and Neighbors, those are my suggestions. Yeah, Greg, Love is out. So fire up Derek Carr with all the confidence. Love is out. There's no decision to be made there. Jordan Love's not going to play. So you're good. Fire up Derek Carr. He's a solid quarterback stream this week. It's a good matchup, and he's on fire. Okay, my spot in line. Neighbors or Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I just got done talking. Malik Neighbors is awesome. Smith and Jigba looked great last week as well. But Neighbors, even in a bad spot, even in a bad matchup, he might be situation proof. He looks awesome. You have to play Neighbors. Even in a bad spot. Good Browns defense. They're on the road. Daniel Jones might get killed today. You have to play Neighbors. You just have to. You just have to. He is that dude. Smith and Jigma might get to that point, but he's still contending with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett for targets. Neighbors is not contending with anybody, with all due respect to Wan'Dale Robinson. Neighbors over Smith and Jigba. You just gotta go. Yeah. You gotta go Neighbors. He's a freaking stud, man. He's already that dude. He's already that dude. Neighbors. Carson Steele, Wan'Dale Robinson, Josh Downs, Brandon Cooks, Jacoby Myers in full PPR. I think Myers has a shot at a good day today. This is a good spot for Jacoby Myers. Against the Panthers, who can't stop a cold, who can't stop a nosebleed. They can't do anything on defense. Andy Dalton might elevate the floor of the Panthers offense a little bit, but he doesn't play defense. That defense stinks. The Carolina Panthers defense stinks out loud at every level. I think they are at this point a team that you just, if you have an option to target them, you just do it. You just do it and hope for the best. You just do it and hope for the best. And in full PPR, that gives Myers even a little bit more appeal. I think Myers is in a really good spot today. He's in a really good matchup. Carolina's first two opponents were the New Orleans Saints. The wide receiver 2 for New Orleans is Rashid Shaheed. He caught a long bomb for a score week 1. And then last week was the Chargers. Is it fair to say Quentin Johnston is the wide receiver 2 right now? He caught 2 touchdowns. So teams' wide receiver 2s so far are absolutely obliterating the Carolina Panthers. I think you go with Jacoby Myers as one of your options. And then at that point, it's kind of like dealer's choice. I would probably wait a week on Josh Downs. I don't think I would go in that direction. I would say play Jacoby Myers, and then Cooks is a ceiling play or a boom bust play. Steele is an RB3 floor play. I think Samaje Perine is the curious play at running back tonight. I think Kansas City will maybe be a little bit more aggressive throwing the ball on the road. And I think that makes Perine an intriguing option, which hurts Carson Steele. So I'll say Jacoby Myers definitively. And then I'll say Brandon Cooks is your aggressive play if you think you need to be aggressive, like if you need to swing for the fences and are willing to potentially deal with a 0 or a low score at the expense of shooting for a home run, which is Brandon Cooks. I'll say Cooks if you need an aggressive play. I will say Steele if you want to play it safe and hope for like a decent floor play from a guy that we expect to be the main ball carrier for the Chiefs, but we got to see it shake out and actually happen first before we crown Carson Steele. Myers for me definitively against the Panthers, and then it's up to you depending on your situation. Cooks for your ceiling play, Steele for your floor play. But Cooks' floor is lower than Carson Steele's. Start 2, 1 running back and 1 flex in full PPR. Akers, Zamir White, Tank Dell, Shakir, Deontay Johnson. I will say Zamir White as your running back, and I will say Tank Dell as your flex in full PPR. This is Zamir White's time to shine. The Carolina Panthers suck. They suck. There's your hard-hitting analysis. They are terrible on defense at every level. They're giving up almost 200 rushing yards a game through the first 2 weeks. And this is Zamir's opportunity with the Raiders 5 or 6 point favorites in this game. If Zamir White does not deliver in this game, he will be in drop territory. I think he comes through. I think he has a solid day. I think we can rely on him for 60 to 70 rushing yards. Hopefully he can catch a couple passes. And obviously if he scores, we're all doing shots. This is the Zamir White put up or shut up opportunity. Give me Zamir White. And then in full PPR, I will take Tank Dell. The numbers have not been there yet for him, but the opportunities have. It's only a matter of time before Tank Dell delivers. I'm going back to the well with Tank Dell. Uh, there will be a week where he comes through and delivers the goods. I think this is as good an opportunity as that for that to happen because he has been involved through the first 2 weeks. It just hasn't shown up on the box score. And then I'm definitively going Ertz at tight end. If you are between random tight end streams, you're between Brenton Strange, you're between Pat Fryermuth, you're between Colby Parkinson, you're between the Saints tight ends. If Zach Ertz is available, that is my suggestion for better or worse to stream for anybody. If you're between all Fryermuth or Ertz, Ertz. Strange or Ertz, Ertz. Gesicki or Ertz, Ertz. Parkinson, I'm going Ertz. Jawan Johnson, Foster Moreau, who the hell knows which one of those two guys delivers? It could be either one. It could be both. It could be neither. I'll say Ertz. Ertz is my tight end stream of the week. I'm not going to sit here and pound the table and say he's definitely catching a touchdown, but he was involved last week. Washington's receiving core is overall not impressive, and they're going to have to throw against Cincinnati. Give me Zach Ertz as my tight end stream this week. And then Zamir and Tank Dell as your running back and your flex. Cooks or Eckler in full PPR? Eckler's intriguing again because Eckler's intriguing for the same reasons that Zach Ertz is intriguing. Washington's wide receiver core is not impressive. And they're going to have to throw. Now, Brian Robinson is taking targets away from Austin Eckler. But there's going to be probably increased opportunities today or tomorrow night, for the Washington running backs as far as targets, pass catching opportunities. Cincinnati's at full strength. They shouldn't have a problem scoring points. This is a get-right game for the Bengals offense. Washington's offense is going to have to plan to keep pace and throw the ball. They are not, in all likelihood, going to be able to just run all game long, which is what they want to do. This is not the game where they're going to be able to do that. I'll say Eckler slightly over Cooks in half PPR. Eckler floor, Cooks is boom bust, like he has always been throughout his career. Cooks could catch a 40-yard touchdown, or he could give you 2 catches for 20 yards. Eckler is your floor play if you think you can play it safe. Cooks is your aggressive play. And it's not a bad spot for him. The Ravens are giving up a lot of passing yards through 2 weeks. Of course, one of those games they saw Patrick Mahomes, but in the other game they saw Gardner Minshew. So there could be problems on the back end for the Ravens defense through the early part of the season. Eckler is your floor play. Cooks is your swing for the fences play if you think you need to be aggressive, but it's always possible that he gives you, 2 catches for 15 yards or 3 catches for 20 yards and duds out. Iron, what's going on? Good to see you. Start Dell or Calvin Ridley. That's tough because Dell, I still believe in Tank Dell to come through. It hasn't come through on the box score yet, but the air yards are there. They are targeting him. It just hasn't happened yet in the form of actual production. Ridley, I'm a little bit more confident in as his team's wide receiver 1. Not a little more confident. I know for a fact that he's his team's wide receiver 1. It's not DeAndre Hopkins right now. Man. I would definitively go Ridley over Stephon Diggs, Iron. I'm a little less confident in that over Dell. If you can only pick one, I'm inclined to say Ridley. I believe in Tank Dell. I'm not giving up on Tank Dell. In fact, he's a buy low candidate. If anybody is looking at any like last minute trades ahead of the slate, Tank Dell is a buy low candidate for me. I think his fortunes will turn around eventually. I'll say Ridley because I know he is his team's wide receiver one. It's not a great matchup against Jair Alexander, but he came through in a bad matchup last week against Sauce Gardner. So I'll say Ridley over both Texans wide receivers, Iron. But I do think Dell's time is coming. I think he will come through sooner than later. He's getting targets. He's getting opportunities. It just hasn't materialized in the form of actual production yet. But I think it'll happen soon. I'll say Ridley, then Dell, then Diggs in that order. And Greg, yes, roll with Ferguson over Ertz. I like Ertz over all of the non-obvious options. Ferguson is an obvious choice. You drafted him to be a set and forget tight end one, and he's back healthy. You're just firing up Jake Ferguson. You're firing him up and hoping for the best. Okay, where am I at? I got the Cooks or Eckler question. Again, I am bouncing around a little bit to take care of my members. Appreciate everybody's patience as I work through the questions. But I see everybody's. I will get to all of you. This is a defense question. Raiders, Texans, or Tampa this week? I'm picking up the Raiders if they are still available, or maybe you already have them rostered. The Raiders against the Carolina Panthers. I know Andy Dalton is in there and maybe offers a little bit higher floor for Carolina, but they still stink. They still stink. And on top of that, the Raiders are a good hold for the next few weeks. Their schedule is really strong. Like as far as firing them up as a defensive stream for the next few weeks, they get Carolina today, and then they get Cleveland at home. That's a good spot. They get Denver on the road. That's a good spot. They get Pittsburgh at home. That's a good spot. And then they get the Rams week 7. That's probably going to be a good spot because their whole offensive line is still out, and at least Puka is not going to be back until then. The Raiders are a good start today, and they're a good stash and hold for the next month. The Raiders defense. The Texans are on the road, so I don't love that spot as much. Tampa has the Broncos, so that is a good spot. That is a good spot. But if you can only roster one of these, I'll take the Raiders, because not only are they a good option this week, they're a good option for the next couple of weeks. So give me the Raiders. And then between Zamir White or Metcalf, it's Zamir if it's half PPR or standard. If it's full PPR, I'll say Metcalf. And then I would go definitively Jaden Daniels over Derek Carr. Carr is a great streaming option this week. Jaden Daniels is just a starter. He is just a starter in one quarterback leagues. He's a top 10 option every week until further notice. The rushing upside is too tantalizing. So Raiders, if your scoring is half PPR or standard, I'll say Zamir White. If it's full PPR, I'll say Metcalf. And then Daniels over Derek Carr. And yes, Iron, you start Akers over Tyler Lockett. This is a good opportunity for Cam Akers. He should lead the backfield in snaps and touches. I assume Daria Gumbawale mixes in to some extent, but Akers should get first crack today. No Joe Mixon, no Dameon Pierce. I'll say Akers. Lockett might be losing work to Jackson Smith and Jig, but that might officially be happening after last week. So give me Akers over Lockett. Pick one in full PPR: Shaheed, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, or Jonathan. You have to play Taylor. You have to play Taylor. Devontae Smith is in a great spot, but he's going to see Marshawn Lattimore. He will get all of the opportunities, but this is, you have to play Taylor. I don't think there's a choice. As good as Devontae Smith's spot is, and I get it's full PPR, so the receivers are a little bit more enticing, but at home against Chicago, Taylor had 14 opportunities last week, and he turned it into 130 scrimmage yards, 135 scrimmage yards. Like you have to play Taylor. You have to play Taylor. I'm not. Devontae Smith, great spot. Rashid Shaheed, also a great spot. Jalen Waddle, no thanks. You have to play Taylor. You have to play Taylor. You just have to. I got Jay's questions. I got Greg's questions. Thank you again to my members. Appreciate y'all's support. And thank you to everybody else for your patience as I work through these questions. I promise I will get to everybody. Pick 2 for the flex: Higgins, Demarcus Robinson, Josh Downs, and Jawan Jennings. So I'll go Higgins here somewhat definitively. These are ancillary options otherwise. And while we haven't seen T. Higgins yet this year, he is the most talented player of this group by far. And it's a great matchup at home in a get-right spot for Cincinnati. So I'll say Higgins. And then I would say it's between Demarcus Robinson and Jawan Jennings until we see Downs. I'm not necessarily ready to go to him as an option. I'll be honest, I do not love Demarcus Robinson's spot today against San Francisco, even though he should be the team's wide receiver 1. Jawan Jennings will definitively be the wide receiver 2, but I think it's a much better matchup for him. I think it's a much better spot. I will say Jennings. Higgins definitively. I will say Jennings slightly over Demarcus Robinson. Take this with a grain of salt because I would be suggesting Demarcus Robinson if George Kittle was active. The reason that I'm suggesting Jennings is because Kittle is out in addition to Debo and McCaffrey. And the Rams are just decimated on offense right now. Their offensive line is in complete shambles. And this matchup against the 49ers is not a matchup that you want to be where the Rams are currently. They've got 3 guys out on the offensive line, maybe 4, to be honest. We might be down to only 1 or 2 regular starters for the Rams offensive line. Not good. I'll take Higgins and Jennings. Mason or Saquon, if you can only start one, you have to play Jordan Mason. I can't believe I'm it pains me that you are potentially putting Saquon Barkley on the freaking bench, but Jordan Mason is probably the top start this week among all flex options. The Rams are getting cooked by opposing running backs. Aaron Donald retired, and they completely went to shit. The Rams' defense, especially their run defense right now, is downright horrendous. I mean, I don't want to sit Saquon. But you have to play Jordan Mason. You have to play Mason. You would normally, you have to play Saquon too, but I mean, the Rams are getting absolutely freaking cooked by opposing running backs right now. And Mason's going to see increased opportunities as well with all these guys out for San Francisco. No Debo to take any carries or opportunities. No Kittle. I mean, it's a bare bones offense for San Francisco. They are going to have to funnel opportunities to Jordan Mason. To be fair, AJ Brown is out for the Eagles, so Saquon should see increased opportunities too. But Mason is off to a great start. Saquon is as well, but the matchup is so good. I hate that I have to suggest this. I'll be completely honest. I hate this. But I'll say Jordan Mason. I think you have to play Mason. The Rams defense is so beatable right now. You have to play Mason. It's crazy that that's where we're at. Yeah, congrats if you have neighbors in Dynasty. You should feel good about that. You should feel great about that. You shouldn't be giving him up for damn near anything. Whoever, yeah, you're not, yeah, you're hanging on to him, and if anybody approaches you about a trade, it's you're going to need to give me your soul. Your soul, your firstborn child, and the deed to your house, and that might get you Malik Neighbors in Dynasty. Let's see. Is this where do you need to upgrade question? Fields or Goff. So you could use a better option at quarterback. Rashad White, J.K. Dobbins, Kenneth Walker. That's fine because Walker is expected back next week. And you have decent depth options in Chandler, Allen, and Akers. Akers might be a drop after this week, assuming Mixon comes back, but he's fine as a stash for now. London, Chase, good. Addison, Ladd, Shaheed, Puka on IR. So it looked really good on paper coming into the season. Unfortunately, Puka's injury really sucks. Puka's injury is limiting you right now with as far as your potential trade options. What you could theoretically do, maybe, I don't know how confident I am in this, but you could, in theory, if you want to try to upgrade at running back, you could dangle Puka and maybe like a Rashad White for a stud running back option. If there's a team in your league that is willing to be patient with Puka and maybe has a really good running back, you could try that. I wouldn't worry about upgrading quarterback into one quarterback league. You can stream those guys week to week. You have Chase, you have London, you have Shaheed. That should get you through. And then if Addison is able to come back, and Ladd McConkey will have his streaming weeks here and there. You could if you need it. If you are 0-2 and you're struggling because Puka's injury is hurting you, and your quarterback options they're okay but not great, and you really need some wins, you need some juice, you need some healthy people now, I would maybe consider like a Puka and a Rashad White for like a stud option at running back. If there's somebody in your league who has a lot of good running backs and could be willing to wait on the Puka return if it happens. But you would need to get a stud option at running back to give up Puka, even an injured Puka. I don't think this is bad. Obviously, on paper, it looked really good coming into the season, and Shaheed should be able to hold it down for you at wide receiver, and in the interim while Puka's out. Once you get Walker back, you'll be all right at running back. But you're not going to get anything for Addison right now. You can't trade Chase or London. I'll say you can't trade Shaheed either because the Puka injury is leaving you kind of hurting at wide receiver. Yeah, I would see if I can find somebody maybe at the top of the league who is 2-0 and feeling good about themselves, and maybe they have a stud running back. See if they want to take Puka and like a Rashad White and get one of their really good running back options. Something like that. Something like that. Hopefully Puka's able to come back soon, but we don't know how long it's going to take for him. We're talking about at least 6 weeks or 5 to 7 weeks, I think is what we last saw. I mean, we're hoping, I guess, for like a week 9 or week 10 return. Hopefully the Rams have some incentive at some point to bring him back. We probably need the Rams to win a couple of games here over the next few weeks for them to have an incentive to bring back their injured players later in the year. So, go Rams. I don't have much confidence in them today to beat the 49ers, but I guess we'll see what happens. Rashad White or Brian Thomas Jr.? I'll go back to the well with Rashad White for one more week. This is a beatable matchup. I know he didn't do much last week, but he's off the injury report. This is a better matchup than the one that he had last week on the road against Detroit. I'll say Rashad. I like Brian Thomas a lot, but this is a bad matchup against. It's not against or is this? Oh, Brian. Is this Brian Robinson? Is it Brian Thomas or Brian Robinson? You said Brian Robinson against Cincinnati, or Brian against Cincinnati, so maybe it's Brian Robinson. I would probably still say Rashad White regardless. I like the spot that Brian Robinson is in tomorrow, but he may get fewer opportunities if they are throwing the ball a little bit more frequently than they would like to. I'll say Rashad White regardless. This is a good matchup for him against the Denver Broncos at home. I think he has a better chance to come through today than he did last week. Oh, Iron, my bad. Ferguson over Ertz. Like the definitive, I like Ertz as a tight end stream um, today, but not if you have an obvious option over him. Ferguson qualifies as an obvious option. We drafted him, and this might be dynasty, but either way, Ferguson is a plug and play tight end one when healthy, and he's healthy. You got to fire up Ferguson. I like Ertz today, but not over a regular starter. Ferguson is a regular starter. Iron. Yeah, play Fergie Ferg. Dell or Waddle? Dell. I'm out. I'm just out on Waddle. Like blanket statement, I'm out on Waddle until we see again. I said it yesterday. I will reaffirm what my thoughts are here today, this morning, or this afternoon for anybody on the East Coast. Jalen Waddle is an excellent individual talent. Nobody is questioning that. But his numbers with Skylar Thompson in the past, it's a limited sample size, but they are bad. This is not a good matchup on the road. Yes, Miami's probably going to have to throw in this game. I just don't have any confidence in Skylar Thompson. I think he's going to struggle. This is not a good matchup. Seattle looks pretty good on defense. Remember, Mike McDonald is their head coach now. He was the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens last year. Baltimore had, once again, a damn good defense. I think Seattle's going to have a sneaky good defense all season long. This is a spot where I want to avoid anybody. You have to play Tyreek Hill and you have to play Devon Achane. I would pivot off of Jalen Waddle damn near everywhere. Unless your options are like the Packers wide receivers without Jordan Love, or like a Ray McLeod, or like a Keon Coleman who got goose egged last week, then maybe Jalen Waddle. But I'm taking Tank Dell definitively over Waddle. I just don't trust him right now. I don't trust Skylar Thompson, is what I should say. And yeah, Ferguson over Goddard, Iron. Ferguson over anybody pretty much not named like the obvious names. Ferguson over anybody other than like Trey McBride, Brock Bowers. I think you still have to go back to the well with guys like Kelsey, Andrews, and Laporta. But Ferguson over Goddard, Ferguson over Ertz. Yeah. Fergie Ferg's a top 7 option this week. Goddard's more like a top 10-ish option. I got Dell over Waddle. Dell definitively over Waddle right now. I got my other member questions. Again, thank you as always to my members. Appreciate your support. And appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out this evening. Yesterday was this evening. This morning or afternoon for the East Coasters. Let's get some week 3 dubs. Where am I at? Would you drop Chase Brown, Alexander Madison, or Donta Foreman? You got to drop 2 of these guys. Do you have like an ineligible lineup right now that is preventing you from starting guys that you need to get in there? If that's the case, then I would drop Madison and Foreman. I want to hold out for Chase Brown a little bit longer. I know that Zach Moss has been the dude so far, but we came into the season with real expectations for Chase Brown in a way that we didn't really have for Foreman or Madison beyond just like running like end of the draft, like deep league stashes. Chase Brown remains a stash for me. He may not outperform Foreman or Madison today, but I'm willing to bet on him as the stash here. If you have your starting lineup set, then maybe don't even do anything. But if you absolutely need to make some drops to set a legal lineup, depending on your platform or the app that you're playing on, like if you've got an ineligible lineup right now and you need to get a guy that's on your bench into your starting lineup and you have to make these moves, then I guess I would drop Madison and Foreman. I think they're both in decent spots today, but Chase Brown remains the stash that I am most inclined to want to hang on to. And Iron, I see, has one more question. That's no problem. Uh, is that Deontay? Deontay Johnson, Christian Kirk, or Keon Coleman? Deontay. Deontay. He gets a boost with Andy Dalton in there instead of Bryce Young. I think his floor is going to be a little bit better today. I'm not expecting the world. If we get like 7 or 8 half PPR points, I'll call that a win for Deontay Johnson. But Christian Kirk looks awful right now. The Jags as a whole look awful right now, and it's a bad matchup. The Bills defense is great. The Bills defense is a top 3 unit, man. I do not like what I've seen from Jacksonville so far. I can't imagine anybody does. The only guy that looks promising right now is Brian Thomas, and he's a rookie, and this is a bad matchup. So I'm not trusting my Jacksonville Jaguars. You have to start Travis Etienne, but that's it. Yeah, Deontay, and then Keon Coleman got blanked last week. We need to see some more consistency before we go back to the well with him. Deontay, Iron. I'll go Deontay. And just to wrap up this other question that I was answering, if you have Zamir and Ford, then okay, the handcuffs have a little bit more value to you. Could you dangle Chase Brown to the guy who has Zach Moss and see if you can get like a depth wide receiver? Or if not, if it's not that type of situation or not that type of league, and you need to make some roster cuts anyway, then I guess you could drop Chase Brown. I don't have a ton of confidence in that, I'll be honest. And I would probably still say, just if you have to still pick one of these guys, I'll say drop Madison. I feel like between Madison and Foreman has a better chance of being like a first down opportunity type of guy, where Madison is more of the change of pace guy. So Foreman might get a few more opportunities on average. But okay, fine. If you have both of those dudes, then maybe stick with one of the handcuffs. I don't want to cut Chase Brown yet. I'm not ready to give up on him, but if you have to make drops, I guess I would go Brown and Madison. I guess that's where since you have since you have the starters, you want to hang on to a handcuff, which I understand. I guess I would hang on to Foreman. Let's see. Start 3, and we got about like 15 minutes left, or 15, 20 minutes left. So I will get to everybody's questions, but then I got to make sure that my own situation is ready to go ahead of the Sunday slate. But it's exciting. Everybody get fired up. Football is within about the next 45 minutes or so. Start 3, Ridley, Cooper, Shaheed, Waddle, Eckler. Those first 3 wide receivers, definitively. Ridley, Cooper, Shaheed. Ridley came through in a bad matchup last week, so I will trust him to this week. I think Cooper is in a good bounce back spot today against the Giants. I think he gets on track, and Shaheed is on fire. Ride the hot hand. Waddle without Tua, no thank you. And then Austin Eckler is a flex option, but I'll take these wide receivers that I have more confidence in over Eckler. They're all regular starters. Eckler is like a rotational guy. Ridley, Cooper, Shaheed. I think all of them are solid. Higgins or Jamison Williams. This is where I'll go JMO. And I see you have Amon-Ra. I would play both Lions. This is a good matchup. The Cardinals defense is not scary. Their Cardinals offense is cooking. There could be a lot of points scored in that game today in Arizona. I'll say JMO. Higgins, we're excited to have him back. It's nice that he's returning, but and there have been instances today where I have suggested Higgins over other options, but JMO is playing incredibly well. Let's ride that hot hand until we see what T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins will be fine Monday night in a great matchup against Washington. I think he will give you a decent wide receiver 3 play with a little bit more upside for a little bit more than that. But JMO is actually on a great start. Give me JMO. He's off to a good start, and it's a good matchup. And then between Dak, Darnold, or Geno, I'll say Dak. It's a great matchup. The Ravens are giving up a lot of passing yards so far to opposing offenses. One of those games was Patrick Mahomes, but the other one was Gardner Minshew. So the Ravens might have some issues in the secondary. So let's chase that for one more week. Go with Dak. Go with Dak. Shaheed or Akers in full PPR? Shaheed. Shaheed, let's ride the wave. Yes, he's volatile. It's probably a little boom bust, but he's caught a long bomb for a touchdown in both games, and this is a beatable matchup at home. The Saints are cooking on offense. The Eagles do not look good on defense. And Shaheed is a regular. He's a starter for the New Orleans Saints. Yes, he's a little volatile. He can be a little bit boom bust. He's of like the Brandon Cooks variety, but he's out there for 70% of the snaps. The only time he's not out there is like in obvious, like heavy packages in running, in obvious running situations. But like he's out there for 70% of the snaps. Like I'll roll the dice on Shaheed. I'll roll the dice on Shaheed over Akers. Akers is in a good spot today, but he's not a regular starter. Shaheed is. Oh, and you have Hall in it. Okay, so you're loaded at running back. Nicely done. And yeah, if you're at the end of the day, it's not analysis, it's not hard hitting like research, but yeah, if it helps, make the move that allows you to root for what you want to root for anyway. So if you need to sit Saquon to play Mason and you're rooting for the Saints anyway, then sit Saquon. Now you can root against him outright. Seattle or Vegas? That's an interesting question because I like Seattle's defense today at home against Skylar Thompson. If you can only roster one, I will say Vegas because not only do they have Carolina this week, but they have Cleveland next week, and they've got another good matchup after that. I forget which one it was. I was just looking at it. The Raiders have a good stretch of matchups coming up for their defense. They've got Carolina today. They've got Cleveland next week. They've got another good one. Denver. That's right. They've got the Broncos week 5, and then they have Pittsburgh. I think week 6 at home. So that could also be good. I will say I like Seattle today, but they have the Lions on the road next week, so I don't like that spot as much. They do get the Giants week 5. I know that because I'm rostering Seattle in a couple of spots. I will say the Raiders for this week slightly, but I do like Seattle today. Andy Dalton is probably a better quarterback than Skylar Thompson. So if you're just worried about just this week and not future weeks, then I could understand Seattle. But if if you're 2-0 or you're even 1-1 and you're feeling good about your squad and you want to be able to like plan things out, the Raiders are probably the slightly better play. But for just today, Seattle is intriguing against Skylar Thompson, who is not as good as Andy Dalton, even at this point of their respective careers. So I guess Seattle today slightly, but Vegas for the next 4 weeks. Greg, did you see I don't have a defense question, I don't think, from you, Greg. Yeah, I don't see a defense question. Internet. Yeah, it's possible it didn't send. So go ahead and resend it, and I can get to it. I got Shaheed over Akers. I got Seattle today, but Vegas for the next month. So hopefully that helps. Dalton Kincaid or Dallas Goedert. I'm going back to the well with Dalton Kincaid for one more week. The Bills look great. It hasn't resulted for Kincaid in the form of production yet, but we drafted him to be a top 5 stud option. I don't want to overreact after a couple of bad weeks to open the season. This is absolutely a beatable matchup against Jacksonville. It's a tougher spot for Goddard on the road against New Orleans. Yes, he'll have increased opportunities, but Dalton Kincaid is a mainstay and a regular that Buffalo wants to get involved in their offense as a primary player anyway. At home, I'll take Kincaid. Let's go back to the well with Kincaid for one more week before we panic. Let's see. Yeah, Kincaid over Goddard. Let's go back to the well with Kincaid for one more week. Iron, I got Iron's questions. Greg, just let me know when you have your defense question, but I did not see it in the chat, so just go ahead and repost it. Superflex, Herbert or Smith and Jigba? Damn. I normally go quarterback in Superflex as like a default, but I understand not having a ton of confidence in Herbert on the road against Pittsburgh with this high ankle sprain. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Smith and Jigba, like almost 10 times out of 10, I want to suggest a quarterback in Superflex, but Herbert's dealing with a high ankle sprain. They may go super run heavy. It's not a great matchup against Pittsburgh. I'll be honest, I don't feel that great about this suggestion, but Herbert is so volatile right now with everything he's got going on. I'll say Smith and Jigba. I'll say Smith and Jigba. I don't love it, I'll be honest, but it's not a great spot for Justin Herbert. Let's see. Yeah, Smith and Jigba over. This is how far Herbert. I have Herbert way down this week. It's just I don't trust. I need to see how he. I need to see him first with a freaking high ankle sprain before I pull the before I fire on Justin Herbert. Akers or Chuba Hubbard in standard. Chuba gets the Raiders. Akers has the backfield maybe to himself against the Vikings. I guess I'm tempted to say Akers. Chuba was better last week, but Miles Sanders is like getting involved in a very annoying way. Whereas I think Akers is a little bit more. I think Akers is a little bit more of like a plug and play today than a guy like Chuba Hubbard. Chuba looked good last week, but Miles Sanders is getting in the mix more than I think anybody was anticipating. Akers should have the best, other than Daria Gumbawale, Akers should get all the opportunities today. So I'll say Akers over Chuba. And then you have Walker who's hurt. He'll come back next week. So you're good there. And then you have Zamir. So yeah, you have Zamir. Oh yeah, I got that. I did talk about this earlier. Yeah, I guess I would say Madison and Chase. I would hold Foreman since you have Ford. And I guess I'll drop Madison and Chase Brown, but I don't have try your hardest to get Chase Brown back after this week if you can. What's up, Max? Good to see you. And I understand not wanting to drop Ty Chandler. He's a good hold as well. If you have Kupp and Puka out, am I giving up a 2025 second round pick to get Whittington in Dynasty? I don't know if I'm there. Because he could emerge. Whittington, maybe this is the Whittington day, but I mean, we still need to see how this pecking order shakes out. Demarcus Robinson should be the wide receiver 1. Like, how much does Tyler Johnson and Tutu Atwell mix in? It's possible that Whittington has usurps those guys eventually if he hasn't already done it. I mean, are you starting him today if you can get this trade done in time? You have until the later slate. You have until the later window to make that trade happen if you're actively working on it. Oh man, I just don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I'll be completely honest. Because the diagnosis for Kupp was that we're not expecting this to be a long-term absence. They're hoping that he avoids injured reserve, so he's back sooner than later. If it's a late second round pick, if you know that it's a late second round pick and you believe in the guy and you want to take a shot on him, then I understand and I won't stop you. But if you expect that second round pick to be like top 6 in the round, depending on whose it is. If it's your own pick and if it's your own pick and you don't have a bona fide contender, or if it's somebody else's pick and they may not have a good team, I would be more inclined to want to hold the pick. And I don't, even if Whittington goes nuts today, I don't think I don't think you can parlay that into a first round pick. I just, unless you're playing with a bunch of Rams fans, unless your dynasty league has a bunch of Rams fans and they love Jordan Whittington and they're just waiting for him to go off for an opportunity to like try to go get him. Unless that's the case, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. I think ultimately I'm keeping the pick. Unless it's going to be this like one of the last 2 or 3 picks in the round, which you could try to telegraph depending on how good the team is who owns the pick. If it's your own and you have a really good team, or if it's somebody else's and they have a really good team, then I could see justifying taking a shot. But if it's a top 6 pick in the round or better, I think I'm just going to keep it. I think I'm just going to keep the pick. And in this matchup against San Francisco, I'll just, if Whittington proves me wrong, then good for Jordan Whittington, but I'm not expecting him to go off against the 49ers with the offense, the state of the Rams offense at this moment in time. They're down like 3 or 4 offensive linemen in addition to their missing wide receivers. Greg, let me get to this now. You stream Tampa Bay over Pittsburgh. No, I don't think so. Pittsburgh is solid. Justin Herbert is banged up in a real bad way. Like, if you have the Steelers, I would just stick with the Steelers, and we'll figure it out next week if you need to stick with them or not. I mean, Justin Herbert's dealing with a high ankle sprain. I'll take my chances on that. And they're at home. I'll take my chances on that. This is the LA's second straight road game where they're in the Eastern time zone as well. Fun little wrinkle. Yeah. I'll take this. I'll stick with the Steelers defense. That's fine. Would I rather play Pitts or Kincaid, Jay? Probably Kincaid. Probably Kincaid. I have no like Kyle Pitts has caught 3 catches for 20 yards in each of the first 2 games. He caught the touchdown week 1, which is great, but like, dude, Kyle Pitts continues to disappoint. I know Kincaid has as well, but I'll go back to the well with Kincaid catching passes from Josh Allen in a good matchup. I'll take Kincaid. Let's go back to the well with him for one more week. Let's see. Where am I at? These last few questions here, and then I do need to wrap this up. Appreciate everybody's coming in and hanging out. Let's get these dubs week 3. You're starting J-Mo over Diggs. I feel good about that. I think that is the right decision. I don't trust Diggs week to week. I know he had 2 touchdowns week 1, but J-Mo looks great. He's a guy that I think is a regular contributor for the Lions, whereas Diggs, you know, he contends with Tank Dell and Nico Collins in a way that I think pushes him down the pecking order more than Amon-Ra pushes J-Mo down the pecking order. I think that's it's a good matchup against the Cardinals. It could be a potential shootout in Arizona today. Yes, I like that call, and that's what I would suggest if you asked me one or the other. So yeah, go with J-Mo. 2 to flex, Dobbins, Charbonnet, Neighbors. The last 2. Charbonnet, bell cow roll against Miami with no Kenneth Walker. Good matchup. He should get all the work. And Neighbors looks situation-proof right now. He's a freaking stud. Dobbins is in a brutal matchup on the road against Pittsburgh with Justin Herbert dealing with a high ankle sprain. He's off to a great start, but I don't want to play Dobbins if I have other options like you do. Give me Charbonnet, give me Neighbors. Definitively. I got Jay's question. Brian Thomas Jr., Demarcus Robinson. Is this a start 1? Brian Thomas, Demarcus Robinson, Deontay Johnson, Josh Downs. If it's a start 1, I'll say Deontay. We're hoping for 7 or 8 PPR points today, but his floor is higher with Andy Dalton in there. Robinson, he should be okay, But the Rams, I just don't trust their offense right now. Unless it's Kyron Williams, I do not trust anybody on the Rams right now. Their offense is in shambles, and this is a bad matchup. Downs, I want to wait a week. I don't want to fire him up yet. I'm intrigued by Josh Downs, but I don't want to start him yet. Let's give him a week. He missed a lot of time with the ankle sprain that he suffered in the preseason. And I like Brian Thomas. I like him a lot. But this is a bad matchup against Buffalo, and Jacksonville's offense looks like shit. Point blank. Deontay. Carolina's offense looks like shit too, but Andy Dalton in there boosts the floor a little bit. So let's roll the dice on Deontay and hope for 7 or 8 PPR points or 6 or 7 half PPR points. Give me Deontay. And then Pittman, Smith, and Jigba can 2 flex and a wide receiver spot. I'm going back to the well with Michael Pittman for one more week. This is a good matchup at home against Chicago. I think this is a potential get-right game for Michael Pittman. So go back to the well with him for one more week. If it's full PPR or even half PPR, then I will say the pass catchers. If it's standard scoring, I would say Steele over Kincaid. If it's half or full PPR, I think I go Smith and Jigba. And I think I go Kincaid. If it's standard, then I go Smith and Jigba. And I don't love the spot that Dobbins is in, I'll be completely honest. But I guess I trust him a little bit more than Carson Steele because we just don't know what Carson Steele is yet or what type of role he's going to have. Okay. The scoring would help. Pittman definitively. I'll say Jackson Smith and Jigba definitively. Pittman as your wide receiver. Smith and Jigba as one of your flex spots. In half or full PPR, I'll say Kincaid. In standard scoring, I'll say Dobbins. I don't love the spot that Dobbins is in today, but at least he's off to a hot enough start where we'll give him the shot over a guy like Carson Steele, who I'm intrigued to see tonight. It's half. Give me the pass catchers. Give me Pittman. Give me Smith and Jigba. Give me Kincaid. Dobbins, great start, brutal matchup, and Herbert's banged up. And Steele is an unknown. Let's go back to the well with Pittman and Kincaid for one more week. And Smith and Jigba looks really good after last week, so I'll take those 3 guys. We are at the end of the chat, and we're about 20 minutes to kick off, so I do have to shut this down. And I got to get my own. Lineup set as well, or my own lineups set as well. Kirk or McConkey, I'll be honest, I hate both of those guys, but I'll say Christian Kirk, I guess. I don't like the Chargers pass catchers today on the road against Pittsburgh with Justin Herbert dealing with the high ankle sprain. So I'll go Christian Kirk. I don't have a ton of confidence in it, I'll be completely honest. But hopefully he can get back on track with some underneath opportunities Monday night in a game where Jacksonville will have to throw. Thank you all so much. Best of luck in week 3. Enjoy the games, enjoy the activities, enjoy the day in general. I will be back on Tuesday for week 4 waiver wire help. Be sure to tune in, 6 p.m. Eastern. I will see you guys then. Best of luck in your matchups this week, and thanks for coming in and hanging out. Thanks, everybody.